Hello, and welcome to Pale Reflections, a proud member of the Doof Network, where we reflect on Wildbow's most venison-packed, antler-racked, bullet-impacted, title-hacked, character-jacked, pain-racked, ransacked, foundation-cracked, contract-enacted, least compact, fact-backed, second-act, after-packed, huzzah, work as it releases. I'm Elliot Diebold.
And I'm Malia.
Yes, got my name right. That was all I was thinking about that whole time. Yeah, we're coming at you live in the Discord. So, even if I did get it wrong and then I just re-recorded it later, people might not know.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome, Malia.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a bummer Reuben's not here, but it's exciting that I'm here.
He's still away on holiday. He's in absentia, which is a bit behind the times because this is hard pass now. So get with it, Reuben.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in other news, actually, as of this week, like 3 days ago, I think, Pale is now the longest running Wildbow story. It finally overtook Twig. So, yeah, I think aside from chapter count, it's now got all the statistics under its belt.
Well, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just love these little statistics. Anyway,
my fiance I keep trying to get him to read these things, and he says like I have ADD and not having like pages like pagination like messes him up or whatever, and he was like, no, but really, how long is this story compared to the other ones? And I was like, so either like I'm like, well, I know Pale's the longest,
a little bit,
but I don't remember which one is this. Like it was this whole thing where I was like, I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even get most of like my real life friends and family to read Pact, which is like the easy one in terms of convincing people to make a commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my friends bullied me into reading things a lot in college, and they were usually right. And so I just kind of expected that I could be like, okay, read this, and then do it. And they're like, okay.
Wait, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, should we get into the chapters?
Yeah. Although you did write on here, is that true? It's Deep Impact's 4-year anniversary.
Oh yes, yeah. Today it's the exactly 4 years since the first episode of Deep Impact came out. So Reuben and I have been doing this for 4 years as of today.
Wow, that's awesome.
I just thought it was worth bringing up too because like last week was Jenny's birthday. The week before that was my birthday. So this is the third birthday recording in a row, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. Happy birthday to the Otherverse.
Or at least the podcasting of it. Although, yeah, as you said, 9 years since Pact started, I think. It gets a little weird because of the way Wildbow started Pact and other stuff at the same time. Anyway, let's talk about Hard Pass 22.2. It's our second Verona chapter.
Yeah, in a row. And I was expecting a Lucy, and then we could finally learn about Avery, but they were like, let's make you feel things.
I remember at the start of Arc 21, I was like, it would be fun if the whole of Arc 21 we didn't learn what happened to Kenneth. And that came true. And now I'm sitting here in 22.2, and part of me is like, it would be pretty funny if we didn't learn what's happened to Avery for all of Arc 22.
I think if Arc 22 is like max 5 chapters and an interlude, I could maybe handle that. But not like 12 chapters.
Yeah, I'm Wildbow, just take a 2-3 week vacation. You don't need to write any chapters for a bit.
Yeah, it's Christmas, New Year's is coming up. Just take a break.
Yeah, take the holidays. Oh, I think I'd die. But yeah, so speaking of, in 22.2, the Turtle Queen is helping smuggle Verona past the Kennet perimeter and past the Girl by Candlelight, because for some reason Verona is seemingly too weak to do it herself.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Verona's able to measure, her power seems to have been cut by half, which is bonkers. And this is a fun, like, does this mean that Avery's dead and things are fucked, or does this mean that Avery has used a huge amount of power to not die? But who?
Yeah. Or like, as Lucy brings up later in the chapter, they have been asking a lot of Kenneth, and Kenneth's in a really bad place right now, so that could be related. Like, this is what's fun about the Otherverse a lot of the time, is just kind of like 5 or 6 things it could be, really. But obviously Verona and us as the readers are sitting with the big one in the back of our head, which is, well, if Avery's not here, they would suffer a power loss.
Right.
And I think I think that's what's really fun about this chapter, is this chapter is very much just like, we're all freaking out about Avery right now, and this chapter takes that energy and like lets us see Verona struggling with the same thing. Like, you really fucking get on board with how much Verona is struggling this chapter, because we kind of feel the same. And so Wildbow's twisted our pain into like this thing that allows us to empathize with Verona's pain in the chapter, and that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think going into this chapter, I was like, there's no way she's dead. And then the more this chapter went on, the more I was like, is she? She's not dead. It's fine. Like, and I kept thinking about, Avery having had this like potential, like life-defining moment where she could talk to someone who really knew about the paths, and, the power loss, and like a bunch of little things that come up. And yeah, I feel like this chapter and the last chapter really like helped remind us how like Verona and Avery are really good friends. We usually think about Verona and Lucy as being the friends, and then Avery, like everyone loves Avery. But this, just really thinking about it and processing it, it was like, oh, like these two would be friends independent of the things that are going on. Probably. So it really hurts.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, there was a conversation about that around like Arc 12 or something, where Avery confided to one of the duo, the remaining Kenneth duo, that she felt like, their friendship didn't count because it was just the awakening ceremony or whatever. And I think it was Lucy was sort of like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Like, we're just friends now. It doesn't matter if we needed that to get the ball rolling or whatever. Like, we love you. Like, you're a great person, but we just are friends now. And like, yeah, like I felt that's exactly what you're touching on here, where it's like, like Verona just really cares about Avery, and it's fucking gutting her to consider that Avery might be gone.
And we see some of Verona's physical like stress symptoms crop up, which it feels like we haven't seen those in a long time. And they're usually about either her dad or like other like inward stuff, and this is like very external. And
yeah,
for a second I was like, oh, do they have some sort of special bond? Because like there's something in that they awaken together, but it reminded me of other book series where like people had like a sixth sense or could tell when someone was hurt or whatever. And the way Lucy acts in this chapter makes me think, there might not be that that like magical knowledge. But this is another one of the things that had me freaking out, especially toward the beginning of the chapter, of like, does she somehow know? But it's just like, it was a bad situation, and then there were gunshots, and then I called for her, and then she didn't respond, and now.
Yeah, like there's obviously really interesting stuff to read into about how much of this is like the magical equivalent of psychosomatic. Like, Verona is carrying this idea that Avery could be dead in the back of her head for the whole chapter. And like that is affecting all of her, and like her ability to feel connected to Kenneth and all that. Like, we're going to see her visit like the domain later, and like she does find peace there, but like at the start it's just very shaky because this like is destroying her from the inside. And again, I think like I just can't get over how clever an idea it was to channel that anxiety that we as readers have and like use it, because I felt Verona's anxiety in this chapter so much more than I normally would. Like, if we'd had a chapter where we knew Avery was alive or whatever, I think I would have like gotten Verona's stress here, but as a reader I would have been like, it's fine though, like she's stressed and that sucks. But it's fine. Whereas sharing it for this chapter, I was like, oh my god. So it's like every time Verona would think, like somebody would be like, oh, you three, and Verona would just have a little moment where she's like, well, there's only two of us. And like that hurt me every time I read it.
Yeah. The God, I hope it's 3 was the first time the stories made me cry. And just like the tension and the stress and the way everything reminds her of Avery and makes her want to think around it. It's so good because we're all kind of like, I think there's a sentence where she says like, I don't know if I'll ever be, or if I'll be okay until like I know Avery's okay, kind of a thing. And that's sort of a big mood, which is still right now.
Yeah. It's so good. Like it made reading this chapter so much more and I think we'll get to it at the end, but like after 22.1, I was definitely one of those people who in 22.1 like was racing through the chapter my first read, just being like, where's Avery, where's Avery, where's Avery, where's Avery? And I thought this chapter did a much better job of kind of forcing me to slow down and wallow alongside Verona as we kind of try to cope with it, and then turns it around at the end. But we'll get there.
I guess one more thing before we move on is about that. Like, if like this could have been one huge chapter, but I think that having gotten through an entire chapter and not learning anything, and then it's another Verona chapter, it really is like, you kind of go into it being like, I'm probably not going to learn anything this chapter. So let's just kind of, breaking it up in that way, I think helped.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess the other thing that happens here is we see a bit more of the girl by candlelight, and she came up a bit last week as well, but she's just so sad. Like the part where they kind of talk her down from getting violent, and then Verona like apologizes for not being able to save Edith, and the girl by candlelight pauses and walks off. I was just like, oh, heartbreaking.
Yeah, because they're talking about how you swore oaths to not hurt them, and she's like, that was Edith James, trying to kind of distance herself. But Verona's like, no, like you were there, you ate the vegetable ash, like you were part of the awakening ceremony. Like there was a lot in the story in terms of like who is Edith and who is the girl by candlelight, and like where is the line. And it feels like girl by candlelight is kind of coping by being like, no, I don't care, that wasn't me, or something. But also it's sad.
Yeah, well, because that was something I remember. That was a lot of people's theories in the first 13 arcs had to do with, Edith did this, but the girl by candlelight did this, and they're separate people, so for oaths it doesn't count. The story actually came in at one point. It was pretty clear that no, they're, for all intents and purposes with oaths like that, they are the same person. And so, like, I read the girl by candlelight trying to be like, no, we're different people. Like now, after the fact, here is as you said, just like a desperate move trying to cope. But it's like Marcy kind of did the same thing last week when she was talking to the Turtle Queen. Marcy was like, well, that was Marisica the Fae who made that promise, and I'm Marisica the Blood Goddess, totally different person. And when challenged on that, she was like, well, let's take it to the judges, and kind of actually was able to be confident in the blatant bullshit she was spewing, whereas the girl by candlelight is not that clever, and when she gets called out on trying to do basically the same thing, just has to like turn tail and run.
Yeah. And like when you think about it, I don't remember how long they were, one person inhabiting the same body, but there was more Edith left in there than I realized, because based on like, they find her when she's in a coma, but doing the Alcazar and everything, it's like, oh no, there's still like this person in here, and so they must have found a lot of ways to get along and live together, even if Edith was like a tiny little echo in the back of her mind or whatever. I think that there was some love and mutual respect there, or at least, I mean, it's hard. We'll talk about it too with the Turtle Queen a little bit, but like thinking of a character in a story that just like doesn't have certain capacities to feel and certain emotions, like is so foreign that I just don't accept it. I'm like, no, you definitely feel sad, but maybe she doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, because we've really only known the girl by candlelight as like somebody who had Edith James as a part of her. And they've like, I think it's like 7 to 10 years at least that she's been in, like she's had Edith. So yeah, it's like she's lost a part of herself that's been a pretty big part of her for like a decade. So like, yeah, there's no reason. Also, it seems crazy to me to think that, you know, she's not failing to cope with that to some degree. But yeah, leaving the girl by candlelight behind, Verona starts to make her way through bits of Kennet, mostly Kennet found, before the Turtle Queen leaves her alone to continue patrolling. And I do have, like, Verona just still isn't really able to talk to like, Verona is usually the other whisperer, the, you know, person who can talk to people with weird forms of communication. But I kind of love that the Turtle Queen is just someone where even Verona's a little bit stumped. Verona's like, I can't quite seem to crack this nut.
Right. It's like the Turtle Queen's thing isn't that she can't, like, she has a voice, she can like talk and form words. It's just like her mind is so different.
Yeah.
That it's not, I mean, it is like struggling to figure out what someone is trying to express in the same way as like people struggle with Tash and Peckersnot and all of them. But it's because what she feels is so alien, not the way she expresses it. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on board. Like, the Turtle Queen is good and will not betray them, and she's really fun, even if she is more difficult to understand. And I find myself putting a lot of like interpreting what she does as having certain emotions when she probably doesn't and isn't.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, in Star Trek The Next Generation, there's a character who supposedly doesn't have any emotions, but like, especially like the farther that series goes on, like makes a lot of decisions and has a lot of character beats that only make sense if he has emotions. And it's like at a certain point, to be able to tell a good story with like a character that you really care about, this kind of has to come through. And so I'm interested to see like what Wildbow does with the Turtle Queen, and how she changes or not, because she has changed, she's learned, but she's not like, you know, Ohana means family quite yet.
I think, well, and there's like, I think really interesting questions to be asked about, like, what the end goal, like, you know, are they just trying to make her quote unquote normal, or like should that be the end goal? Like, you know, she's growing as a person, but like, I think the really interesting thing about Kennet is their policy's generally always been, you can grow into whatever you want, just like make sure it's not shit,
right? As long as you're chill.
And yeah, exactly. I just don't do a violence, and that sort of thing. So like for the Turtle Queen, I almost don't want her to just get more and more human. I want her to stay distinctly alien and kind of unknowable, but like continue to be better about it. Like, because she's still very much herself. Like we see here, you know, Verona's dropping hints that she wants company. Turtle Queen just doesn't get it and leave. Like, and that's all very classic Turtle Queen. But she, as you said, she's grown. She's gotten better at not like taking things, like kind of learning the value of teamwork. And so like I love the idea of exploring someone who's still distinctly the Turtle Queen, but with the rough edges kind of just sanded off so that she can be herself without being a problem. And that just feels like kind of what Kennet's all about, really.
Yeah. And I mean, part of how I think they've managed to do this is like exemplified in this little bit where Verona, you know, she takes the time to thank the Turtle Queen and to, you know, say, no, really, like, it does seem like you are doing more than you're like required to do. Like, look at Gashwad. Gashwad hasn't done shit. And like, we really do appreciate it. I think that the big thing with the Turtle Queen is like, in Kennet, she doesn't feel like cornered by these practitioners. They're not, and the others around, they're not there to like eliminate her. They're like, hey, respect other people and their autonomy, but also like, we don't want to erase you.
Weird.
Yeah. Sorry, the chat's talking
Yeah.
about Gashwat a little bit. And like, I do love him. I just don't know where he is or anything, and it's fine.
Yeah, I think Gashwat is just kind of blended into the Undercity. I was interested in seeing him hang out with Guillermo, which was talked about. Mostly, I just want to learn what's his fucking weapon form. I'm mad that it's been 22 arcs, 3 billion words, and we still don't know what his bloody weapon form is.
It's one of the 4 original goblins. Like, no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like to go back to the Turtle Queen a bit, like yeah, it's she's going like above and beyond a bit, and that's like I remember in her interlude, like one of the things that came up is like she kind of didn't know what else to do but grow and take over and subsume things. And I guess like to touch on what you were talking about, like I think that's like Kenneth is showing her that there is more to life in a way that other practitioners didn't, because other practitioners just saw her as a threat and shut her down. Whereas like I remember when Rook first brought her out, it was sort of like, no, we can find a way to teach you that there's more. And like, yes, I think, that is what Kenneth is doing. It's providing her that space to like not have to be in fight or flight mode all the time.
Yeah. And
Same
she's
as
a
it
good
did for Chloe and Nibble before they ran away.
But yeah, she's being a good, member of the society. She goes on patrol, and that's super useful. She's like super powerful and scary and awesome. And she probably doesn't have to do that to keep within the bounds of her oath. But yeah, I don't know. She's great.
I'd love a Turtle Queen interlude. That would probably be really hard to write. But like really xenofiction-y interludes have been some of my favorites in Wildbow work, so I would love to see it. Especially I want to see, how does she feel about her future husband Monty? Like there's a lot of questions there too. Like anyway.
Yes.
I love this thought Verona has about like the sensibilities around mask wearing. In Kenneth Found, where she sort of notes that some people are wearing blindfolds, but then other people have masks which just kind of show their eyes. And so she's like, so what is this about then? Like, what is the goal of wearing the mask? And I thought this was a really fun little thought experiment Wildbow's put in his own universe.
Right. It's like, it's not that there's a specific part of the face that you need to keep covered. It's the the norm is to cover something on your face, but like it's very nebulous as to what that is, and that's really fun.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea. So you know how like say a man can walk around topless, but a woman generally can't. I wonder if there's like a similar sort of thing in Kenneth Found, but it's not done by gender. Like there's some other axis or spectrum or something that exists where I don't know what it could possibly be, but people of a certain personality type have to cover up their eyes, whereas other people have to cover up their noses or something. Like I think it could be really fun to learn that Kenneth Found just like built its dress code around some other completely bizarre I don't know, like value.
That would be fun. I do think it speaks to what masks are. Oftentimes they're about like concealing your identity. They can be about, I'm thinking there's this Croatian player in the World Cup that has been wearing a big face mask because he like broke his nose earlier, and it's like a little bit of a protection thing. Like, like knights do protection. I'm thinking of like Bane from Batman has that like big like mouth mask or whatever. Like there's just so many different ways to, like the Phantom of the Opera wear a mask, and they're all masks and they all conceal and or provide some sort of life support, and that's fun.
Yeah. I'm seeing quite a few people in chat mention stuff about like how it's about obscuring yourself or hiding yourself, and I don't like that framing, just because that feels like a weird vibe for Kenneth Found to be like hide yourself. It might almost be you get to choose how to present yourself, which is like just the same idea but a different angle to think about it. But it's like maybe the point of Kennet, like, because this was Mrs. whole thing, and what she wanted for Kennet originally was it was a place where others didn't have to be beholden to their category.
Mm.
So maybe the point of the masks is it gives you the freedom to express yourself with a capital S.
Right. Maybe clothes are about hiding certain areas of our bodies and also like warmth and stuff, but they are a huge method of self-expression. So I like that
good point.
in terms of
As someone who just wears like the same t-shirt and shorts like all the time, I do forget that clothes are a form of self-expression. I'm so bad at fashion.
It's hard. It changes.
Well, I went to a school that had uniforms, so it just wasn't something I ever thought about.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I'd had more practice as a kid at caring about what I wore.
Yeah, same. When I see pictures of myself in college and I'm wearing just like weird, ridiculous stuff, I'm like, this was me learning how clothes worked. Like, just why was I wearing that? No one knows. It's fine. Speaking of clothes, I really love how Verona intuits this like clothes hanger zipline system. I'm sure the chat will remind me of all the time she's like already done this and we've already seen this, but it felt new and it felt like she was really good at it and figured it out quickly. I mean, she's had a decent amount of time to use it, but I don't know. It's so fun and whimsical, but the Verona side to me was like really like breaking it down and figuring out exactly how it worked. Whereas Avery would like look like a badass superhero. I mean, Lucy would too if she like got herself to this, though, right. If she got herself to use it.
Like this, like because I was reading this and I had that thought. I was like, "Fuck, Can It Found is a nightmare to navigate." Though, like, I really was a bit of a Lucy reading this. Where I was like, "Oh, can you imagine having to put up with this shit? Like, what a pain in the ass."
Yeah,
it is so whimsical and magical, but sometimes I just want to walk over there. Like just let me walk.
Yeah, and it's fun that Verona's, like I hate running and has this like fun magical system that allows her to get somewhere fast without having to do that.
Yeah, because Can It Found is complicated but accessible.
Yes.
But yeah, so Verona eventually manages to clothesline her way to the moot. And as she comes in, discussions have sort of turned into this argument about what counts as a safe haven, with Killwagon taking the floor. It really essentially it's just Lucy fighting for others to have rights at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so she counts some coup against Grayson and frees dog tags as a part of that.
Yeah,
and I love Killwagon here so much.
Yeah, he was fun. It's fun coming into this and being like, what is he talking about? And then being like, oh my God.
I love the part where Grayson is like, you could game the system with that, that's not fair. And Killwagon's like, oh, gee whiz golly, sir. I sure, sure wouldn't want to beat the practitioners to that for once.
Yeah. It's a fun thing where I very much agree that others deserve a lot of these same protections in terms of like their home and places that they're meeting and stuff. But it is silly when one of them is like literally everywhere that I am at all times is my house.
Yeah. Like I guess I thought that was it was really hard not to talk about this conversation with Killwagon because Jay brought something like this up in the Reflecting episode we recorded a few days ago where Jay was like, it starts to get weird when you start to define all these things. And I was thinking of this conversation, but I couldn't talk about it. But yeah, like Killwagon, it sort of brings that up here where they say, okay, homes are safe or whatever. And it's like, okay, but if you try to draw a line anywhere, there's going to be an other or someone, like there'll be a niche case that kind of makes it a bit confusing. So like at a certain point, you have to draw a line somewhere. Like you can't just have simple rules that account for everyone. And I thought it was really fun seeing that in action here with Killwagon, kind of making a pretty good case, but not getting it in this sword mode at least.
Yeah, this reminds me, where what you were just saying reminds me of practice I think a lot of people in law school do in one of their, like we did it in a writing class where there's a city ordinance that says that no vehicles are allowed in the park, and then you have to decide, are tricycles allowed in the park?
Exactly.
And it's a mess. It's fun.
And I mean, like, because I love this because my instinctive response to a scenario like this is I'm like, well, that's what you have like judges for. That's essentially what a lot of the legal system is it's it's trying to hear about the circumstances
Mm-hmm.
to understand if the rules should apply or not. And so, like in an ideal world, someone might kill Wagon's vehicle. That's what the judges are meant to be for. But currently, we've got Charles, so like we can't rely on that part right now.
Right. I'm easily impressed asked if the tricycle is motorized, but I will note that the statute does not say motorized vehicles, it just says vehicles. And also, are you going to ban motorized wheelchairs? It goes everywhere. But yeah.
Oh god. That's a fun little thought experiment. I love that.
Yeah, it teaches you a lot about
that's essentially what they're doing here, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Statutory interpretation.
Yeah. Also, sorry, just like as we're talking about like the others having a platform, and Lucy like is really using all of the credibility she's gotten in this moot to enforce that. Like it's just so fun seeing Lucy having earned a lot of sway and respect in this moot, and she's just immediately using it to give, others a platform.
Yeah, even though Verona's like, wait, what is Kilhagen saying? And she's like, yeah, this isn't, like that would be a bad rule, but also she does not, like she prioritizes him having a voice, probably with the confidence that he won't be able to enact this rule, and just really prioritizes that. And it's a very Kennett thing, and I love it.
Yeah, especially because there's so many just oof comments from people like Mrs. Ferguson and Anne and Grace, and when they're just like, well, that doesn't matter, he's another. It's like just say that. It's like, oh fuck you, Lucy's just using all of her new power to shut that shit down. Kilwagon also brings up he has a friend who did the implement domain ritual with a motorcycle, which I was like, that's obviously a stupid thing to do. Just like that person clearly did not have access to the implement and domain books that we saw in the extra materials. And also I can't help but think like you're in this really cool otherverse with all this magic. Like, what do you need a motorbike? Like, as if you love a motorbike, turn into a bird or some shit if you need to get around.
Yeah, I mean, some people are afraid of like heights or whatever, but that's fair. You could turn into like a cheetah or something.
Yeah, a roadrunner.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out. Well, I don't really remember the domain text very well. It does seem odd to like the cool thing about a domain seems to be that you can like put all sorts of cool shit in a building and move stuff around and like a physical space that is your own, whereas a motorcycle doesn't have like a roof and
it's a special chair that moves is what a motorcycle is.
Right.
It's not a house. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was wondering if she regretted it for those sorts of reasons, or does it somehow tie her to the abyss more? I think he's mentioned something about it making it harder for her to come out of the abyss. And so I'm wondering, like, can the motorcycle, is it tied down there? Is it harder to bring it out? It was interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was because if you think like to touch on what you're saying, like a motorcycle is a shit domain because it's too small. It's also a shit implement because it's too big. Like it's just, it's like a bad fit for both. Because an implement, I think you're meant to be able to like pick it up and carry it around. Like I feel like the 20 kilos or something was suggested as like the limit.
Yeah, because on the one hand, at least it's mobile, but on the other hand, you can't just like bring that inside and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess you could. You just like people wouldn't want to be around.
Like, what the fuck?
But you could be, yeah.
Like those people who
I don't know, maybe
bikes through buildings are
maybe
weird
you
enough,
could like.
But
yeah. I'm just thinking of that. There was that Yu-Gi-Oh show where they all rode around on motorcycles for the whole thing. So they've just got to move into that universe.
Like Tall says, a motorcycle is the perfect size to be a familiar. I wonder if you can make your familiar turn into machines, or like not, whatever, if that can be their animal form. And then that makes me think of the new Pokemon games where there's like the motorcycle Pokemon. That'd be
Which,
fun.
so I know this is an aside, but like, because my sister and I have been playing through those, and we took one each, and I've got the violet one, which is the future one, and I'm literally riding around on a motorbike. Whereas she's got Scarlet, which is the old one, and it's this thing that is, it looks like a motorbike, but it uses its legs and just drags the wheels along the ground, but they don't rotate. It's bizarre.
I have that one too, and I love it so much. It's so silly because I feel like the violet one like levitates kind of.
Yeah.
And like that's really cool, but I just love that he's like, I'm gonna run. He's so cute.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous. It's hilarious. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I find that idea of animal forms that aren't animals an interesting thing to explore with future familiars. Like somebody being like, "This is my familiar, and his animal form is a soccer ball." Like
That would be the worst. What about like a toaster? That'd be fun. If the brave little toaster was your familiar.
Technomancers need to be stopped. Oh god, the new chapter just dropped.
That's rude. Wow.
That's what that ping was. Oh
well,
goodbye, audience.
Yeah. I'll catch up with you next
time. Yeah. Okay. Well, so trying to get back on track before we lose everyone. Oh yeah. Tinfoil time. This is the part where Verona thinks, the number 4 short is coming up a lot. Wonder what that's about. And I was like, yeah, well, I don't know. Do we have tinfoil theories on what the number 4 deal is? Because all I could turn it to was when I did Japanese at school, 4 was a bad number.
Yeah, that's the thing I immediately thought of. And because like 8's a good number. Well, I don't know if it makes sense the way it was explained to me because I don't know that I don't think they write numbers the same way we do, but like 8, there's no endings. But 4 is just endings, like it all ends in like a point. And that's kind of how I remember it, is like 8's a good happy number and 4 is like the death number because it's all just like broken ends.
Okay.
And that, yeah, made me freak out. And then I was like, but it's fine.
Yeah. It's also very interesting because Pale has been about 3s. That has been the magical number of this story. Like, we've got the Kennet trio. There's 3 Kennets. There's always been 3 sides in every fight. Like, this has been a story that has really been examining triads and like just expressions of the number 3. So now 4's coming up, and part of me is like, is there? Are we going to start doing 4sies? Like, I don't. It's very. You could get very tinfoily with this.
Yeah. People are pointing out in the chat that the number 4 is pronounced the same or a very similar way to the word for death in Japanese, I'm assuming. So that's part of why that
sounds familiar.
Related. Yeah, I think the fact that there are 4 judges is weird. Like, because I was thinking about it and I was like, well, there's just 4 judges. And I was like, but there's other options. There's like Azure and whatever. And so it is interesting that that's just what happened in this region. And it makes for a nice trio in that the Kenneteer is going after the Alabaster and then the Aurum and then the Sable is kind of like a 3B, but then there's Charles. But then what are we doing with Charles? Like he's, I don't know. I don't have anything intelligent to say about the number 4 other than I freaked out.
Yeah, you're right. This just feels like a sentence, like in 2 arcs, we're going to be able to look back at Verona thinking this and be like, oh, that's what Wildbow was telling us.
Mm-hmm. The Dogs of War being freed was very exciting. Again, this chapter was filled with examples of the Kenneteers continuing to do good and stick to their morals even when it's difficult or inconvenient. Lucy potentially uses this moment to get some coup against Grayson, but also probably like she had to spend, I think they had to spend like, money to get this to happen. It's not without a price. And more Dogs of War is fun. But then the one that made me like so excited was Whistle because Whistle has a dog and it's so exciting and so good. But immediately I was like, oh no, is like seeing a Dog of War with a dog who like Lucy wanted John, a Dog of War, as her familiar in dog form. Like, is that going to be hard for her? But also there's a dog, so I'm just really excited.
I mean, yeah, the Dog of War with a dog is just like, it brings up hilarious existential questions about like, is the dog part of the Dog of War? Is that a different type of Dog of War? Like, what is the line here? It's very fun.
Right. Like, I assume that they're one, maybe kind of like the
Freaking Squeak.
Yes. But I'm wondering if Whistle's consciousness is kind of like somehow bilocated, or if they're more separate like that. But yeah, I think Freak and Squeak is kind of what I'm thinking. But I want to learn the dog's
but then
name.
What's their personality like if they're essentially half dog, Like anyway.
Yes.
I hope we see more of them. They seem fun.
Yep.
Oh yes. This one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just finding where we are in the notes.
Well, just a little thing where Musser Sr. is like, fuck you, Charles, like shut the fuck up. Is really satisfying and fun. Because I mean, like, Charles was like, literally both of you go suck on your own dicks or whatever. Lenny said it like 8 times or whatever. Oh, go fuck yourself. That was it. And so it's fun to see the hostility here, but just Charles is not making himself any friends or doing anyone any favors. Like, these people who are like not on the same side are very much on the same side because fuck Charles, which is fun.
Yeah, wait, I at these moments continue to just make me feel very confused. Like hearing Massa Senior kind of back up Lucy and be like, no, it's like, I know he's not like on our side. He's just against the car. It just feels so weird to see Massa backing Lucy up like that. This is what the whole moot has been. I just love it every time. Like, and even when Verona shows up and Grayson's like, I can see Hayward is back, so I assume we've done what we needed to here. And I'm just like, oh god, we kind of want to team with Grayson. That's so fucking weird.
Yeah, and especially like Lucy just kicked their ass, like, today. And he's just like, I will use the Musser name to fight you on this point of law. Go away. It's great.
So Lucy kind of takes a quick break, and the Kennett duo update each other on what they've been up to. Like Verona choosing Freeman as the new Aurum candidate, and Lucy securing awakening rules to stick it to the Negateers, all that sort of thing. And it's left very ambiguous whether Charles knew about Maricica's plan to play Abyss Chicken. It's seemingly very clear that Liz had no idea, which I find hilarious. I love that for her. But it just seeing the teamwork or lack thereof kind of in the culprits is just so fun. And I continue to be in my head just like comparing it to the Kennetiers and all the stuff we've been having about how their teamwork has been going over the last arc.
Yeah, because they've really been coming together, and this is an example of the conspirators falling apart. Charles, I think it's funny that like if Charles knew that this was happening, like that sticks to Liz, but if he didn't and he just has to keep like the best like poker face ever, kind of a thing, like especially if he's upset with it, like that's really funny. We haven't seen much of the Abyss in this story, but it's like where boogeymen come from, and they're kind of like violent and stuff, like the Undercity, and Charles's whole domain or whatever is like violence and war. So I could see it not being as that much of a problem. I'm not sure how it would affect his power and stuff to have his seat in the Abyss. Maybe Marcy would have like more power over him. And then like I was a little like, I can see why Liz would be more upset to be like doused in abyssness, even though she's like cool with the Undercity. That's taking it a little bit farther.
Yeah, exactly. I get the impression that the Abyss, just because it was mistaken for hell, I think that's the other thing we've been told about it. And
Mhm.
I've latched onto that. So part of me is always like, yeah, I assume it's the Undercity, but like 100 times worse.
Right. We're seeing a little bit of like how Marisica has changed combined with like how her people when they come back are affected as
Yeah.
more clues to how awful that place is.
Yeah, we hear nothing nice. Even Killwagon is the closest thing to something from the Abyss we've seen in this story where it's like, hey, you seem great. And he's pretty consistently like, man, I fucking hate that place.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I just think I think it's so funny that like, yeah, because of course they didn't tell Bliss. And then Charles, it could go either way. I think it's so fun because we saw the Kenneteers do so much stuff like from arcs 14 to or the end of 20, I guess, where they were trying to do plans and stuff where they couldn't communicate because Charles could always listen. And now it's like Charles has been out of action for like 9 hours and Mariska's already ready to drop him into the abyss as seemingly as a bluff. Yeah,
That is pretty wild.
it's so funny.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the way she reacted to killing the alabaster, the Kenneteers. She seemed, giddy and excited, and that might have just been, some of her fayness, thinking that was like funny and like an interesting opportunity. But I do kind of wonder, like, yeah, is her plan to become the Carmine, which she would not be a fairy anymore, definitely. What's up with her?
Yeah. I've been meaning to go and reread her interlude and also Edith's trial where the Sable showed up because I feel like there's got to be clues in those two chapters
Mm-hmm.
for what the fuck is going on with those two people.
It's gonna be clues like the number 4, though. We don't know.
Yeah. Obvious in retrospect. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I continue to feel like what's going to separate Kenneth from the culprits has to be something around teamwork, and so these little bits where it's just so clear they're not a functional unit, and in some ways they're worse than how the Kenneteers were in Arc 13 when Marcy used their lack of teamwork to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess that was the thing. Marcy had all the power. Like it wasn't really a unit when in Arc 13 when the culprits won. It was like Marcy and her sidekicks.
Right.
Whereas now Charles kind of has maybe not as much power as her or whatever, but it's like more equal footing, ability to do shit of his own. And so that might be what's tearing them apart, whereas the Kenneteers have continued to get better at working together, like at equal levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that that's true. With the Kenneteers, it wasn't so much like infighting. I mean, there was a lot of tension with Avery planning to leave and Lucy and Verona not understanding each other about boys and stuff. But I don't think they like distrusted each other.
Yeah, it's always been the little things. It's never actually been the like they've never done the drop your mates in the abyss for a prank sort of level shenanigans.
Frank, I love that.
The other thing that came up, Freeman won the Aurum thing from Verona, the part where Verona chose who got to die, apparently. I don't know. I just thought that was nice because I think Freeman was the right or the best call. It's a shame it didn't work out for him.
Yeah, I do too. I think that he had more potential for empathy and maybe a little bit more of a possibility that he would have some motivation to work with them. I mean, the other two didn't have like antagonism toward the Kenneteers and what they're doing or whatever, but Freeman's here because he's worried afraid of being horrified. And so presumably he'd have.
We saw in his head in his interlude. Yeah. Sorry, we saw in his head in his interlude. Like he's not a bad person. He was more just an idiot than a bad person. Is how I would have described him.
Yeah. And I think he had presumably he's here because he doesn't want to be horrified, and he'd have some sort of feelings about the people who wanted to horrify him. Even if he didn't really totally gung-ho go for being on their side. But I think the way we find out this decision and the way we find out what happens later is just very, it's kind of funny that his end is just entirely off screen. I mean, he's not that important of a character, but like it was just like, oh, like we're not seeing this contest. This contest is not gonna work. Yeah.
I was honestly kind of happy for Freeman that he just got unmade. Like that seems better than being horrified. I don't know if that's a harsh thing to say, but like part of me was like, hopefully he wouldn't be too. Like, it could have been worse for him. You know, this was not like. It's seemingly the choices in front of him were get unmade by losing this fight or get horrified. I think he would have chosen this ending. So it's sort of the silver lining of him getting unmade like this is he doesn't have to live out his literal nightmare by getting horrified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think it was interesting how Verona was like, if I was more of an asshole, we could have picked the Turtle Queen or that other chick and maybe like, I mean, I'm not sure that either of them would have done better. I think the Turtle Queen probably could have taken him. But we don't know what the contest was like. Yeah, I don't know. It's just another point toward them really sticking with their values over things that might help them win right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an interesting conversation about that we'll get to in a bit. That Verona talks about with Grandfather. But before we move on from this little segment, I also wanted to call out the bit where Verona is like very clearly not saying everything to Lucy, and we see Lucy use her sight, which I just thought was like a really cool piece of writing because we know that Lucy sees like emotional wounds as daggers sticking out of people. So presumably Verona's got like this 40-foot like sword coming out of her heart right now. And then that leads to Lucy being like, wait, where's Avery? And it's just great writing because you sort of follow the logic. You can picture what Lucy's seeing and you're like, oh shit, here we go. And it's just deliciously evil. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's a good tie-in with the end of the chapter, which we'll talk about. But Lucy using her sight in this way. It was at some point around this that they're like, oh, we should talk to Chase. And I don't remember if we knew that Chase was like super useful and great at this point. It's interesting that he goes from being, like a decent Bellinger augur, whatever, to like everyone wants to talk to him because now like he has seen all and like so he's great at seeing because he is infinite. As Zerdit points out that his thing was always about finding people. But it feels.
But I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, it makes sense that he's better at it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it seemed like Chase's talents in particular were something that everyone wanted when Verona calls Nicolette later. So I wonder, like, presumably that a ton of people aren't lost right now necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe Avery's only one of many. Maybe we're going to slowly learn that a lot of people have just gone missing. That would be fun. Oh yeah, I wanted to call out. So when Lucy is sort of summarizing what they've achieved here and what Killwagon's whole thing is about, she covers it and says, homes, council meeting places, and churches are protected ground. And like my initial response to that was kind of, how is that not already? Like I would have assumed the most like backwards ass chaotic places would already have rules like that. But churches in particular jumped out to me as like, didn't Marisica just set up churches all over the province?
Right.
Like, are we sure we want to, like, I get making churches sacred ground that can't be defiled or whatever. That makes sense to me. But maybe let's wait 4 years until we got rid of Marisica before we do that.
Yeah, it's also thinking about something Jay said on the Reflecting episode in terms of like, I mean, y'all were all just sort of talking about how religion hasn't been as prevalent, like in these stories necessarily in terms of like the characters haven't had a lot of religious beliefs or convictions that we have known about. I'm wondering who proposed the churches thing, if that's like a Negateer contribution or what? And I also would presume that like all those movies and myths and whatever about churches being protected spaces from like vampires and whatever. I guess I would have assumed that from like certain types of others in practice, churches would already have that protection. Although I guess this is just like they increasing the bad karma of attacking a church, as opposed to just like if a vampire, which we don't think exists in the other verse, happens to step foot in here, they die or whatever.
Yeah. It could be about increasing. I don't know. I just had the same sort of thought. I was like, surely these were just like somewhat general rules. Maybe not the home one, but the idea that council meeting places should be somewhat respected without a declaration like of war or something. I was just like, surely that's the default.
Right. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah. I wonder if the churches thing was like, my first thought was maybe it was like practitioners who work with gods, like as in if you were somebody who worked for, I'm trying to remember the name of that god from Arc 8, Metaphaeus or something.
The healing guy,
yeah. Like if you have a church for him or something as a practitioner, you're gonna be like, hey, can you not fuck with like my god's like home without like a heads up?
Yeah, that's kind of like a home base sort of thing. If you're a priest or whatever, acolyte, I don't remember what that's called.
Yeah, something like that.
But I don't know if any of these combat practitioners. I mean, I guess is Ulysses a combat practitioner? Flash, is he here? Because that.
Yeah, good question.
Because I was like thinking, oh, it'd be like scary war gods, but maybe not, or maybe yes.
Yeah, he did. I thought he had like a special club or something he fought Ted Havens with at one point in Arc 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
There's definitely something. One of the other things they mention in this section is that if there's a primeval or something that shows up, like the practitioners in that area need to like try to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it, the ostensible point of the seal was to help protect humans mostly from scary shit that goes bump in the night. Like the Bjorkman is a great example of something that the seal would be designed to protect people from. But practitioners practice to help bolster that protection ostensibly. And so this is an example of like how to make the system work for good purposes that it was originally intended. Like she's reviving the spirit of the law, and I love that. It's not something.
It's something we've talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's like the legendaries were the only people kind of doing what practitioners were made to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a really good point. Lucy's essentially actually getting them to do their job again.
Right.
And I remember I'm seeing chat bring it up too. I was just about to say Bristow. I remember this was like the one part of Bristow's network where I'm like, hey, that makes sense. Like they had a bunch of rules about how you had to contribute to emergency situations. And I love that Lucy's managed to find a way to bring that idea back. Because you're right. Like, keep and help flourish the good parts of the seal. Like is absolutely a good thing to do.
Yeah. And it's like, this is not something I could see Charles ever trying to suggest or work for, because he hates the seal, and also he thinks that individuals thrive eventually on their own or whatever. And yeah, it's just an interesting example of the Kenneteers working to like within the system to better it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bristow,
rest in pieces.
What a wild decision. Like this story has like come so far and so many things have happened, and that was such a big deal at the time. And just thinking like, Bristow, if you had just like sucked it up a little bit, you could like be here now. I don't even know what. Like what? Why?
Yeah, imagine being so petty that rather than take the L, you go hang out with the brownies. Like, terrible decision.
Yeah. It's fine. Yeah, and then I like pointing out funny things Wildbow does, even though I don't have a ton to say. But I like that they've been... So Toadswell mentions that he and Taddy have been taking notes, and they look at Taddy's notes, and it's just like, I'm bored. This is boring. Everything is boring. and eventually devolves into what she calls fan fiction. And Verona's like, what is this fan fiction of? And Daddy's like, no idea. And I love that. And I wonder if this is some sort of like, Wildbow's a creator on the internet, and fanfiction is huge in internet spaces. And so I don't know if this is a specific dig or joke, but I thought it was really funny.
One of the things I was, because she mentions that one of the big things is there's like dinosaurs in it. And there's like talk of like, I think it's time traveling dinosaurs or some shit. And like, it was about at this stage in Ward that they started talking about a kid's cartoon one of the characters watches that had a little witch with pink hair who taught kids it's okay to be mad, which obviously ended up being a reference to Lucy. So now part of me sitting here thinking, well, does this mean that the next Wildbow web serial is going to have a bunch of time traveling dinosaurs in it? There's only one way for us to find out.
And Taddy has some sort of like supernatural connection to that universe and knows that it exists but doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
I love the little detail that what Verona thinks might have happened is that Taddy wasn't paying attention when somebody changed the channel, and so she thought two different shows were the same show, and she's tried to reconcile them in her head.
Which is very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and like, there's a bit where Verona's like, I'd love to enter this into the official record just for the hell of it. I was like, oh God, please do.
I'm like, I wonder what that would do, but
if there was all the articles, the written record of all this, and then also just some weird dinosaur fanfic.
And just like, this is boring, you're boring, that person's boring. So good. And yeah, it makes me think that Toadswall started like taking notes or something, and then Taddy was like, I want to do it, and just so good. Gets bored immediately.
Yeah, she's learning. She's trying. That's something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess, Lucy takes a break from chatting to Verona to kind of wrap up the moot because everyone's getting pretty grumpy. And so, yeah, they kind of end it on a bit of a high note, which is that Lucy introduces a motion to punish false claims of gainsaying. And I think this is a good thing, right? Like, I guess it would depend in what kind of faith the false accusation was made in. Like, if somebody genuinely believed it was a gainsaying and they got proven wrong, I don't know that they should be punished like this, but it's a great way to stop Charles and his dumb spam shit.
Right. Like, you don't necessarily like it. Yeah. This in a way weakens gainsaying if people become too afraid to use it.
Yeah.
Because then people can maybe get away with a little bit more. But I guess it's also like who, like, this seems to have helped make Charles cut it out. But isn't Charles the one who would judge whether or not, I guess I was a little bit confused. Like, he would judge whether or not the gainsaying was actually frivolous or whatever.
Yeah, which this is the problem, right? Is like these sorts of things you need to have a judge at some point. And so this moot can only go so far. And I think Lucy and Verona talk about this after the fact. The problem is, at the end of the day, all of the interpretations end up falling back on Charles's lap. So this can limit him, but only to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wildwood points out the punishment is pretty mild. I guess, yeah, like not being able to talk for however long the punishment would have been. I wonder if Charles could also be like, oh, I was only going to punish you for the next 60 seconds, so that's how long I have to shut up. Oh, consensus, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have seen when people accused someone else of gainsaying. Like, this was the whole thing between Verona and Bristow. Is he called her gainsaid, and she sort of no you'd him, or maybe it was the other way around. But it's by claiming someone is gainsaid, you've already gainsaid yourself if you're wrong. So like, whoa. To a degree, this should have already been a built-in feature, but like Charles was clearly skirting it. So I think Lucy enshrining it in law is at least hopefully meaning that it will be aimed back at him if necessary, or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's funny how Lucy, I think, or Verona, I don't remember. Somebody tries to drag the Sable into this a little bit. And they're like, what do you think? And he's like, I don't want to contribute.
Yeah.
And they're like,
man,
no,
he's
do
so
it.
weird. I think I talked about this already with Jay and Mega, but like the Sable, like I was thinking of this scene as well whenever the Sable came up. It's just like there's something going on with him. The fact he keeps showing up to hang out with Charles, we've seen him do it a bunch of times now. I'm like, there's something going on with this dude, and I can't wait to find out what the fuck it is.
Mm-hmm. And him being here was a fun, or what he says was an interesting tinfoily moment for me, because he says like, I'm just here because whatever, and nothing else demands my attention. And I could leave at any moment. And I'm like, so Avery's not demanding your attention, and that's good, right? I know there are like psychopomps or whatever they're called out there, but I was like, this was a weird moment of like,
yeah.
No,
you're right. It's good because it means at least if she's dead, it's easily resolved issue. It's not a complicated death, so that's nice.
It's just over. Yeah. Yeah. And then the flip was that Verona comments that she doesn't think she's seen Charles this miserable. And people have been talking a lot about, like, is this about Avery? He likes the Kenneteers a lot. We know that. And is he just like completely devastated because she's like horribly dead or whatever? Yay.
Yeah. Like again, that the anxiety this chapter just draws out of you by making you go through this with Verona is so good. So powerful.
Yeah.
The last little bit from this section I wanted to call out is America and Liberty go to hang out with Toady, and they bring Anthem with them, which is this nice little moment where Verona points out that Anthem looks a little bit put out that they're not choosing him, but then they bring him too. And I was like, oh, that's nice. But also, I kind of want to be a fly on the wall for a hangout session with these four people, because like Anthem and Toady, there's some history there, and I'd be interested to see where the two of them are on the forgiveness spectrum, because that's a lot.
Right. And especially we know that Anthem has had a lot of time to think and reflect. And, he's like, Lucy, I like, I get it. I get what you're doing. I like you, like blah, blah, blah. And thinking like, has he spent any of that time reflecting about Toad Swallow? Does
he has to have
his daughters being there help? Whatever, I don't know. Does Toad Swallow not jab at him or whatever? Like, does Toad Swallow give him some space to be able to not be defensive or something? I don't know.
Yeah, like I would love to see that interaction. Like if we were about to get an interlude from either of their perspectives or a snippet to see, I'd love to see that conversation.
Be pretty fun. But yeah, so as everyone is leaving, Verona and Lucy also head out with the dog tags in tow. They're going to visit the hospital to see Jasmine. And Lucy overhears Midas not being very happy about them following some practitioners. And then while she reunites with Jasmine, grandfather gets to talk to Verona about how shit it's been in Kennet. Woo!
One thing I did note, and this is just such a minor detail, but I thought it was funny. When Jude separated from Lucy as she went into the moot, Jude was like, if it gets late, I'll assume you found another way out. So, like, there was no need for Lucy to go and check on Jude. But I do think it's funny that seemingly they don't even think to send someone to, like, I mean, there's a lot going on, but I just thought it's funny that Jude could still be sitting out next to all those boats as everyone else starts to leave, wondering if Lucy's coming or not.
Oh, I completely and entirely forgot about Jude, and I feel
well, seemingly you're not alone.
Bad about that. And I love Jude Garrick so much. And I am starting to get a little bit worried about this pattern he has of people just like completely like shitting on his entire person unintentionally.
Yeah. Like, I guess, he brought up with Lucy and Verona when he joined them as replacement Avery, which, is a position that might be a lot more open for him, actually, now that I think about it. But like when he was going around there, he was like, man, hanging out with you three always seems to blow my self-esteem or whatever. And I guess I just thought this might be another notch in that belt where it was Lucy seemingly forgot to send anyone to check in on him. I just think that's funny. Yeah. Poor Jude.
I know.
Big Avery energy, early story Avery energy.
Yeah.
Getting forgotten about. But yeah, you brought up the bit with Midas, and I really wanted to talk about that too, because like I couldn't blame the guy that much.
Mhm.
Like it was sort of like having a distaste or distrust of practitioners. I was a bit like, well, you would.
Mhm.
I guess it was just I thought it was really interesting that Lucy is seemingly willing to stand there and kind of listen to grandfather handle this, because I feel like a past Lucy might have felt the need to get involved and like try to explain herself, or explain why she's not like the other practitioners, but
Mhm.
she seemingly is just willing to trust grandfather to handle this, and he does.
Right. Part of it might be that she's had a decent amount of experience with new or like newly released Dogs of War, and she also understands that like some of the things that they've gone through and why they would hate practitioners. But I mean, this seems to obviously be the right move. Letting grandfather handle it, like not butting in, trusting that like if Midas chooses to stick around, he'll learn like the other ones did about how things work in Kennet. And but yeah, I could see Lucy earlier in the story being upset that someone would think that she sucked real bad.
Yeah, I think it's because obviously she's usually almost on the other side of this, or like she's used to being looked at and judged, and that like has been a very reasonable sore spot for her in the past, and like I could see her reacting poorly to somebody judging her because she's a practitioner or whatever. So that the maturity and trust, I thought, in just being willing to let grandfather handle it was pretty impressive. And yeah, I think grandfather kind of wins it over when he's like, look, we're doing this job and then we'll go grab drinks and you can stay here if you want.
Right.
But I think that might have been finally the moment where Midas understood he wasn't being tricked into servitude.
Right. They're not some sort of like weird cult where she's like mind possessed them or has something over all of them and whatever. It's I liked when was it Doe? One of them points out like, dude, she's wearing the coat we gave her. At least I think that happens, and that wasn't just a thing I made up in my mind, but it was pretty great.
Yeah, no, she does. Yeah. I think she also mentions that she's wearing the dog tags, which is when Midas is like, they all fucking wear the dog tags. And I was like, yeah, okay. But yeah, again, I thought a lot of his complaints were pretty reasonable given the circumstances.
Yeah. And the name Midas is so cool. I'm interested what his shtick is.
Yeah, what is he turning to gold? Yeah. I really enjoyed seeing how bad Kennet has gotten too. Like we during this chat with grandfather, we're learning all like how Jasmine is now living in a secret apartment, and there's like some fucking spy safe house shit to get her to work, where they like have cars that lose tails and shit. Like this place is a war zone much more than it ever has been in the past, and that's like very fun.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's interesting that Jazz has been the most affected by this out of the parents in Kennet. Like, presumably Connor has been like super affected, but he hasn't been moved, and he's not like maybe it's because the innocence living in his house provides him with a little bit more protection. And like, yeah, Brett, it's like, yeah, they're watching him, but they're not doing anything. And,
I mean, it doesn't take a connection specialist to sort of look at Brett and be like, oh, I mean, I guess like he deserves as much attention as Barb and Rand do, really. Like,
yeah. But yeah, it's only been like 2 or 3 days or something, and I'm like, how did they find this apartment? How did they? I don't know. It's kind of wild, and I feel very bad for Jasmine, and she's great, and she doesn't deserve this.
There's an argument to be made that they take her with them if they leave again, although I don't know that they're going to be. Probably depend what, if anything, is happening with Avery.
Right. This is a tangent. I apologize, but this reminds me of a story my judge told me. um, so I work for a federal judge, and a long time ago, he had been told by the U.S. Marshals, who they're like a federal law enforcement agency thing, and they really work with the courts and stuff a lot, and they like protect judges whenever that's an issue. And so they like told him one morning, like, hey, like this defendant's wife came in and said that like, like that her husband made some threats and maybe was going to like do something bad against judge. And so, we're going to have some extra protection for you and whatever. And he's kind of like, okay. And so he knows that there's possibly some sort of threat. And apparently at like 11 o'clock at night, he's like, I need cash, and like decides to go to the ATM because why not? And he gets in his car and notices a car that's parked down the street, turns on and starts like following. And so Judge is like, oh fuck. And so Judge proceeds to like, go all out and like really like lose this car that's tailing him.
It was the protectors, wasn't it?
Was like... So he gets to the ATM and he calls the marshals and he's like, hey, like there's this car that was following me or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, like that was Julio. He's super embarrassed that you lost him. And that just reminds me of this a little bit, except way more fun.
Oh yeah. I would be impressed if Jasmine was able to lose the dogs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I guess so. The other thing that comes up is Verona sort of talks out. She sees that there's kind of 3 scenarios for where we go from here, which is a very fun thing for Wildbow to put in the story as it goes on. But essentially, option 1 is that Charles realizes he's a dumb fuck and stops. We rate this one as unlikely. Option 2 is that this just keeps going, turns into a war. Eventually one side wins, but both will come out of it having lost a lot and being pretty unhappy. And then option number 3 is that somehow Charles gets dethroned, and this is where Grandfather kind of comes in. Is like, yeah, but then he's just going to get replaced by someone like Marisica. Like, toppling a tyrant like that generally just puts someone about as bad in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I guess this feels like an interesting thing to put in the story here, because I'm like, okay, so is there a 4th? There's that number 4 again option that we're just not seeing, or like, because like options 2 and 3 both kind of suck. So yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a really fun kind of thing to put in front of us as readers.
Yeah. If it's only these 3 options, I guess I see number 2 as the most likely, because I think that the Kenneteers wouldn't want Marisica to replace Charles. And so maybe they would try to prevent that. But yeah, you suggested this in the chat, also seems to think that like option 4, there's some piece of media where someone focuses on taking making another option when there's only a couple of options presented, and I can't remember what it is, so never mind.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I think we can talk about it on this podcast.
Okay, maybe that is what that is. But yeah, I can't think of what another option would be, but Wildbow always seems to come up with something, so hopefully there's a more positive option that isn't just Charles being like, sorry.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting to consider if it is like a variation of option number 2, where this turns into a full-blown war, and it's like, even if the Kenneteers win, they're going to be really unhappy with how they had to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, we have already seen them kind of have to be willing to do some bad stuff. Like, there was obviously a huge debate about whether killing the Alabaster was the right thing to do. Like, they didn't want to do a murder, but they kind of had to. And that was like a bit of a line being crossed. And it's sort of like, we saw them lose in Arc 13 because they refused to cross any lines. And so heading into this second kind of confrontation, it is a bit like, well, what will they have to sacrifice to win? Like, I could see a version where the Kennedys win, but they're like, I don't know if this was worth the cost. Like, we had to, I mean, Verona says here she picked Freeman because he was the best candidate that wasn't the Turtle Queen or something, but Freeman lost. So the Turtle Queen might have been more tactical, and if they have to start making decisions like that, they'll probably hate themselves when they win.
Right, and I think that they've shown, or they've really prioritized people needing to get their shit together. Like with Toadswallow, they're like, we don't think you should be head of the council anymore because like you have this shit on your hands, and from the recent past, some of it. And I think that their integrity is something that really helps them win. But I don't think that killing the Alabaster was the wrong decision. And I think part of that is that the way that they went about it was so thorough, and
no, I agree. I think the Alabaster thing was the right call given what she was doing and all that, but it was an escalation for the Kennedys. That was really the first time they've set out and they've been like, the successful scenario here is that she dies, kind of thing. Like, it was I don't want to use like slippery slope or anything, because I don't necessarily believe in slippery slopes or whatever, but it was like, this was the start of them having to accept that they were going to have to do things they didn't like, I guess.
Yeah, I think the successful outcome was that she was like, yeah, you're right, fuck Charles. But they
True.
They
but
knew
they didn't think that was
basically right. There's also Milo Sanjite as someone that Lucy presumably decided it was okay to kill, and it's different.
True.
Kind of saying okay with letting Guillemette do that versus being more involved. I wish we saw some more of those conversations about that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, so I guess it'll be interesting to sort of track this going forward, I guess, is how the Kennedys feel they might be going within these three options.
Right. Like Alexander was like not them being like, let's kill Alexander. It was them being like, oh, John, you killed Alexander. What do we do? And then Milo Sanjite, it was like, well, there's this like serial killer in our town who
and he keeps trying to kill me. By that point, it was self-defense. Like, yeah.
And then the Alabaster. It's interesting how this is progressed, I guess. But hopefully they don't start making decisions like asking the Turtle Queen or what's her name to do the Orem contest. It really does suck that like becoming a judge is so awful.
Yeah, I know. But this is the problem we keep running into, is like a good candidate is a bad candidate because you don't want to do that to them. Like, you need somebody who's in a shit place, but then if they're in a shit place, they're probably not right to be a judge. It's a bad system.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Verona finally gets to visit her own home, where all of her A-tier friends have gathered, A-tier friends for an A-tier practitioner. And she basically struggles to kind of hold it together and not break down about Avery as they catch her up on what's been happening with the domain.
Yeah, I found it. I mean, one of the big ways I don't relate to Verona is the fears about being too vulnerable. Almost always I don't have the sort of like, oh no, should I hug? Like, sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know if I should hug this person because like, do I know them that well? But in terms of like, she's been gone, she's been through so much shit, and the idea of like, oh, do we hug? No, I guess not, was like so alien to me, and makes me feel like, Verona still has some work to do in terms of vulnerability and working through how Brett messed her up in terms of her hating the way he was emotionally abusive and stuff. And that's an interesting way that her arc could continue to go in this story, or not. I mean, this is a huge thing.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I find this one of the most relatable parts of Verona. I met up with Reuben a couple of weeks ago in person, and I'm still like, even with someone I've known as long as him, I'm still like, do we do hugs? And I just follow the other person's lead because Yeah. And I'm just not a big, like, what do you do with your hands when you're hugging someone? That's my question.
Fascinating. I, I don't know that I've noticed my hands when I hug someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So this something like this actually came up at our house the other day because my sister came home from work at like 4:30. And I'd finished work early too. So I was just like hanging out in the living room and she comes in and she's like, "Oh, my muscles are sore. I'm going to go get a massage." And so she just went to a place that did massages and got a massage. And I need like 3 weeks to prepare I found that crazy that she could just walk in and get a massage. Like,
it's like, "Hi, stranger, please touch me."
Yeah, like I was like that's crazy to me. And I feel like maybe this is related to the hugging thing because I just always like I never know what to do. I just stand there and if the person hugs me, I try to hug them back, but I don't know what to do with my hands. But the whole thing's very weird.
Well, if I ever meet you in person, I will take that into consideration and probably hug you anyway.
That's fine. If the other person takes the lead, I'm happy to follow. I was very much on Verona and Malsing here. It's like, do we hug? And I'm like, oh, thank God, other people go through this.
It did. Mal and Verona have kind of a like antagonistic, fun relationship, and so that made sense. I think the thing was with Juliet, I was like, you were so worried about her, and like so you know you thought about her a lot. You were very broken up about the idea that she might have died, and the fact that it's just like, oh hey, like felt so weird. But I guess Juliet like is the person most likely to understand Verona, and to like be cool with the same sort of expression of affection. But I was like, hug her. She's alive. And she knew that, but still.
Yeah, because we have seen like hugging is a thing for Verona. Like that was a big thing with her and Lucy, right? Wasn't it? It was like Verona kind of instilled this practice of the three of them all hugging each other, just when they didn't have the words for stuff. So like, we know that Verona isn't anti-hugging or whatever.
Right, because they had done that when they were little. And then she also denies Jasmine's hug in this, which made me upset. I was like, you need a hug. But also we've had a lot of beats about how Verona's running out of glamour. And so it made sense that she was like, no, I have to leave and I can't mess up my face. Yeah,
but those excuses are always how it starts. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's I was surprised at how emotional I got with Verona's reunion with her like little gaggle of misfits here in the house. Like just seeing, like, it was nice seeing Macaulay was here. Mal was like still herself, but her best self. Like Mal was only mildly shit stirring. Gillette volunteers to help by volunteering Melissa to do the work, which I enjoyed.
That was really funny.
And even that bit where Verona just like sits and is like leaning on Anselm, and then Macaulay like massages her like hurt hand was just like, yeah, I guess talking about the hug she needed or something. That moment felt like that times 1,000. Like she just had somebody to lean on and somebody was massaging her hand. It was just like, that must have been so good for her.
Yeah, that was really satisfying. And the collection of people that were there was not like, I like that Anselm was there, that he's just like, yeah, I like this chick and these people and what we have. Because like,
yeah,
it seems like she sleeps in the same bed as Anselm and Macaulay, and like that's kind of fun. And I am appreciating that she has like this physical connection with people, because I think that it's good for her.
Yeah, I think she very much needed to not be just like alone, and so it was just kind of like having, like just that sort of like I think this could have been a thing where it's like, even if they just slept on like the ground and she was in the bed or something, that would have been like a huge improvement.
I had sort of a silly thought that was like, how did Macaulay get here? Like, I mean, I guess shit's been happening all day or whatever, but like, because she didn't ride over with them, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, they left the Garrick HQ. So yeah, it is a good question.
So like, did Garrick help drop her off? And it was somewhat upsetting. Like, I'm happy she was here, but the idea that like Avery's mom and Macaulay were like spending some time together, and now like when no one knows where Avery is and like time is passing and presumably Avery's mom, etc., are worried that she's not there with her, was kind of like
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Avery's mom wants an update.
She's about to have a permanent vacancy in the Macaulay age group spot. So yeah,
that's convenient. She'll just slide right in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious sense of how Macaulay got here is a Garrick, but I do think it's fun that maybe this is, Rowan was foreshadowing all along, and maybe Macaulay's actually like a little bit gay and has teleportation powers. Or no, what was his other idea that she flew a plane and parachuted down? Maybe Macaulay did that. That does actually sound like Macaulay.
Yeah, I could see her knowing how to do that.
Oh yeah, and sorry, we learn because Melissa can't read the fucking room. We learn that the family man is back, so that's fun.
It almost sounds like he's in Can It Found or something, because she mentions like Miss is trying to deal with him, and so I'm like,
I think he's raiding Can It Found. Yeah.
I hate that.
I mean, it's got to be like, because do you think he's doing like? I could see him being a member of the church, right? Like, I'm interested what his relationship with Marissa / Charles is. I have a feeling he has come to an accord with them, like, good old family man values of the church sort of vibes.
Yeah. He was such a big scary threat, and I'm just hoping they've like leveled up enough where he won't be that big of a deal, because we don't have time for him right now.
Yeah, I know. This is like, bro, can you fucking not? We've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. Sangachi and Azizer did it point out that they're not sure that he would subordinate himself to a woman, even if that woman is a goddess. But
see, I could see the goddess bit getting around it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I could see it going either way. I mean, it'd be pretty funny if they ended up with an enemy of my enemy situation with the family man. If we thought Grayson and Mossa were weird bedfellows, hold our horses, because family man alliance coming up.
It can get weirder.
But yeah, so yeah, Verona spends the night getting some rest, getting some. She mentions like socialization on the needs pyramid, and like that's essentially what she's getting right here. And then Lucy catches up with her the next morning. So Avery has now been missing all night. So yeah, Avery's been gone for at least 8 hours. Freeman is gone for a lot longer than 8 hours in the future. And this leads Verona to having a bad thought in front of Lucy.
Yeah. This was, I mean, I almost just jumped to the banner part, but I think we should talk a little bit about other stuff. But that was so upsetting.
The realization that it's been overnight and then Chase wasn't able to find anything is very much like, okay, this is fine. Like, I mean, if she's not dead, which I still will be surprised if she's dead. Like, if she's dead, I think she's going to get better. But, like, wherever she is, it's been long enough now that's like, okay, she has to have found refuge of some kind there, because she would have bled out. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, wherever she is now, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's freaking me out.
I mean, I found it to be kind of a relief that, like, it sounded pretty definitive that she's not in the abyss, she's not in the ruins, and maybe like there's still that chance, because it's whatever. But so that was somewhat of a relief. I also presumably he could find a dead body that probably would still have a lot of connections to stuff.
Yeah,
as long as
I
she
think
wasn't,
John
like,
had to very specifically do a bunch of shit to Alexander's body so that Chase couldn't find it.
Right. I feel like, well, that ghoul ate him and then they hid stuff places or something. Like the car had something happen with the car.
They drove a car into the river, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and even that wasn't like completely
No, effective. They found him eventually.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, we this is also the segment which, as you mentioned, has the banner switcheroo, which is just in a chapter that's already being delightfully evil by playing on our existing anxiety and emotions like this. This is the coup de grace for it. This is the moment where Verona lets herself consider finally the thought that's been in the back of her head the whole time, which is, what if Avery is dead? And we see it with the banner without Avery. It's so good.
Mhm.
I think everybody saw this and just like kind of flipped their lid. It's great.
Yeah. Well, because especially till you see the next banner, it's like, is this
Yeah.
confirmation? Like, is this
Yes.
what
Yeah.
this story is now? Like, ah.
Well, because Wildbow's never like. I think this works because it's a completely new mechanic or whatever you want to call it. It's a completely new sort of thing that he's doing here. So you see it and you're very much like, I don't know what the rules are with this. Like, what does this mean? Yeah, is this confirmation? And then we do sort of learn that it was this really clever way to sort of explain the shift in Verona's kind of way of thinking, like much the same way the banners have traditionally been like, and now we're in a different POV. It's like, this is Verona changing the way she's thinking about the trio. And so like I think it's such a great fake out because it all, like once it comes together with the second banner, you're like, oh, I see what this was doing.
Mhm.
But when you see that first one, God, you flip your lid.
Yeah. Because I also thought we were going into like the next section. Because normally, like, if those banners show up in the middle of a story, I feel like it's, or a chapter, I feel like it's because now we're in a Lucy perspective or whatever. And so I thought it was going to
Yeah.
be like a time jump to like confirming horrible things. And yeah, I think it really, like with the cracks in the banner and the Kenneteers like fading and coming back, it shows a lot about what Wildbow's been doing with these the whole time, which is cool.
Yeah. I loved it. Savage and clever.
Mhm.
But yeah, so this is then Lucy gives a bit of a speech, helps Verona unthink these bad thoughts of Avery being dead. And so we sort of close out the chapter with Verona rediscovering a bit of hope.
Yeah. The way Lucy knows her friend so well is really incredible. And I mean, you pointed out earlier, like her sight is about seeing wounds in people and places, particularly like emotional wounds. And so presumably she could see the dagger or whatever like shrink a bit or something, like the red staining recede.
Yeah.
I feel like they've used this with Verona to, like, they've seen like a blackness in her mind or something when she's really, really not doing well and trying to repress it. But I think a lot of this is also she just knows Verona. And they're just so good.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Like, and this is because this is, I mean, what's great about this, and I think I've seen other people point this out in other places. This very much feels like a message from Wildbow to the readers as much as it is Lucy to Verona. Like, this is Wildbow sort of saying, look, you've got to trust, like, you know, we don't know what's happening yet. Let's just keep going with the other stuff. Like, we need to keep moving on. And like, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, I know when I jumped into 22.1 for the first time, I was speed reading the first half of it. I was like, Avery. Like, I was about ready to control F Avery. And yeah, like I think this chapter is almost a response to presumably a lot of us doing that, which is like Walbo also saying like we need to, yeah, have more trust or whatever. And then yeah, like it works in universe as well because this is Lucy saying, look, there's nothing we can do right now. We're gonna keep pushing forward and do her proud and trust that she can handle her own shit.
Mm-hmm. And it's, so I feel like the first part of 22.1 was like Verona, didn't think anything was wrong. And I think we had even backed up a little bit. So nothing at that point was necessarily wrong.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like the fear that Verona wouldn't realize something bad was going on was very present. And then I think I just sort of assumed like we would kick into like rescue action mode and we would all go out and like find her. But
yeah.
But yeah, what the fuck are they gonna do? Like I mean, part of me wants them to like call up the Garricks and like go on every fucking path they can think of, but also like short of that, I don't know what they can do at this point, especially with all the other shit that's going on. Like they don't have anywhere to go get Avery. And so yeah, the idea that at this moment they just can't really do anything is not how I thought we'd respond to this. That said, I mean, maybe we will like organize some sort of search and rescue, but the idea that you're doing that not just like throughout the forests around Kennet, but throughout like the universe is a bit nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I guess I'm very interested to see into Lucy's head next, because I wonder how, like, she's obviously putting up a good front here, but like surely there's a part of her that's like freaking out about this too, because that's like I don't know. It does seem like the healthy and mature thing to be like, there's nothing we can do. We've got like blah blah blah, but there's still going to be a part of that that's eating at you. And you got to be ready. Like this was Lucy's big lesson at the end of arc 14, I think it was, where it was like, you've got to make sure that you're ready for when you are needed. So she doesn't want to dwell too much on panicking about this right now, because she needs to make sure that when they do know where Avery is, they can go do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our people in the chat know what's up with the next chapter, and we don't. I am hoping that it's a Lucy chapter. As much as I want to know what's up with Avery, I really have enjoyed this deep dive into Verona during this time, and I'm wondering what Lucy is experiencing.
I agree. I think it'd be a missed opportunity if we don't see how Lucy's coping with the possible death as well.
Right. Because, like, if, like, we find out Avery's fine, you know, whatever, alive, and then Lucy finds out, and we think about, or we experience her mind later where she's, like, reflecting on how she felt, it just feels like it wouldn't be as impactful. That said, we have got a lot of raw emotional freak out with Verona, so... Yeah,
keep it going though. I think I've been having a blast. This has been awful. I love it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're gonna get like a Kelsey Kelly interview or whatever, or interlude. Just really track this out.
Yeah, that would be painful. Yeah, I mean, with this, I think it was arc 10 where Verona was just like gone for the whole thing, and it was like the last chapter of the arc was her. With her mom, like doing the first interviews with Cass. And yeah, I could see this arc trying to do something similar with Avery. I don't know.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, unlike Verona, I don't have more important shit to do. So I'm happy to sit here in tinfoil about what's happened to Avery. Like, you know, Lucy talked Verona out of it, but we've got time. So I'm curious, what are people thinking? Like, what is the deal with Avery right now? Like, I've got a little list here that we've made of like the common stuff I've seen people talking about, which is she's somewhere on the paths? ? I think her being in the abyss potentially with Marcy has been talked about a lot. I also thought the ruins might have been an option, but you're right. 22.2 seems to imply that like Chase would have probably been able to find her in those two places.
Right. Or at least he thinks, yeah. It seems like a crossed off the list for now, but maybe stranger things have happened.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of theories around Snowdrop's ability to play dead as an opossum. And so maybe they're playing dead, which, you know, I mean, she gets shot. I don't know how much acting is required. But that's a possibility. I saw some people in the Reddit thread talking about maybe she got time traveled by the Aurum, which I thought, I don't know where they were pulling that from, but that's fun tinfoil.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Time travel hasn't, other than Ted Havens, has time travel been a thing in these stories? I guess we did meet a time magician lady in Ottawa, but I just can't see Wild Bow wanting to fuck around with like straight up time travel all that much.
Yeah, this theory was that like, because I guess jumping forward in time is a little bit different to like time travel. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. Like that one seems unlikely to me, but you never know.
Yeah, just in terms of all the like split timelines and whatnot, that gets confusing.
Yeah. My own pitch, and this is fresh tinfoil, that I didn't have in the last Reflecting episode because I only thought of it this morning. But I was trying to think of if somebody from her network could have taken her because of the way Verona phrases it. And I was thinking of like, that lost guy, was it Ratchenko, the guy who you can't look at because he always moves out of your field of view?
Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah.
And I thought it would be funny if he picked her up, but then every time Chase was looking for them somewhere, it was like Ratchenko gets moved.
That would be fun.
The tinfoil that I really wanted to bring to this episode today is I was trying to think of people with the ability and tools and know-how to zip Avery out of this place and stick her somewhere where other people can't track her. And Megafire brought up like the wolf and lots of people think about the paths. And I was thinking, Wondercand would be interested in meeting Avery again and getting an IOU from the girl who stole the promenade from them. So my new tinfoil is that Wondercand has swooped in and grabbed her.
That's amazing because they would have a reason to not immediately be like, "Hey, Avery's friends and family, here you go."
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't imagine this is going to be a pleasant stay for Avery. They'll stop her from dying, but
right.
I doubt they have free public healthcare in the Wondercand HQ, right? Like it's going to be. I also just kind of want to see Giselle and whatever the other guy's name was who she's meant to meet.
Oh right, that guy, the child guy.
Yes, yeah, the guy who had caught Miss and she struck the deal with him. Milton, thank you.
Hey.
Anyway, so yeah, this is my new hot off the presses tinfoil.
I like it. Yeah, unexpected. I think the only thing I can think of outside of all of the stuff you've suggested is like the Alabaster Assembly is doing her job and has found someone who needs sanctuary. This feels possibly too convenient in terms of like, if the Alabaster Assembly was like, "Hi, I am super on your side," that would be not as interesting or satisfying. Like she's already kind of said like, "Hey, this doesn't mean like I'm your ally. It just means I'm going to try to like actually do this job or whatever."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the only other option that I could see in terms of like big power saving Avery.
There could be an interesting angle there in that like we saw the Alabaster Doe had gathered her like cult. And in Arc 4, Avery looked at it and was like, "This makes me very uncomfortable." And so this would be one of the Alabaster Assembly's perhaps first opportunities to pitch whatever her version of it looks like. I don't know. Yeah. I guess we'll see. I mean, I've definitely talked about both the Aurum and the Sable being other ones because we've seen judges isolate people where connections can't reach them before. So I think technically any of the judges except Charles is a candidate for having Avery, but who fucking knows?
Or Hazel was just like, "Hey, you seem cool. I'm going to just snatch you up and run away." I don't know. Just trying to think of any
She's
options.
now Hazel's sidekick.
Yeah. Or turns out Hazel is actually like kind of a body snatcher and needs a new finder to inhabit or something. Or it could be the finder, capital F. Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen people mention that. I kind of feel like we're never going to. I think it's more fun if there's just maybe question mark a copy of Avery somewhere in the world and we don't know.
It feels like someone who's essentially captured Avery's identity could make a lot of shenanigans happen in her name all over the world. But
yeah,
that'd be fun.
I mean, I feel sorry for the person. Like, if it does turn out somebody is holding Avery captive or whatever, I just feel sorry for the person who's going to find out what Lucy and Verona look like trying to get Avery back from that person. Because I think there are very few powers in the world who are going to be able to handle the shitstorm that would be coming their way in that scenario.
If Thea was like, "This is finally my chance for revenge and no one will ever know."
Thea would be very fun as an answer, actually. I don't know how she would have gotten involved, but yeah, I mean, at this point, we're that deep in the tinfoil. It doesn't have to all add up.
Macaulay's and Kennet, anything can happen.
Yeah, true. She hitched a ride as well. But yeah, okay. Well, that ends the chapter. Avery is still dead, and I guess we'll have to wait till next week at least.
Woohoo!
Uh, I mean, I'm going to go read 22.3 pretty immediately after this, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, let's get into our Pale Predictor comments. So these were predictions left in the Pale Predictor form, which is in the show notes down below. I'll just quickly jump in with mine because it's a nice quick one, which is from Belle Tal. And they were predicting that when Avery returns, she will reveal that she met Pisces and found out what his deal was, but she can't tell us. And I don't think this is a serious prediction, but I do think it's a very funny one.
Mm-hmm.
That would be funny that we finally get the answer on what Avery's been up to, and it's like, yeah, but also I'll tease you more with Pisces.
I would love that. I pulled one from Quantum Hacker. This is a pretty specific what happened to Avery or where is Avery prediction. And I'm always just impressed when people can remember specific past that Wildbow like offhandedly mentioned once. And they suggest that Avery went to the Amaranthine Conundrum. It's a state between
the purple one
life and death,
on the turtle's back or
and
something.
It's purple. Yes. I did not remember any of this at all, but something spirits can't reach it because everything is purple, and that's confusing. And so maybe this is somehow blocking things off. It's been recently established that you can like change the color of things with glamour. Verona did this at the start of this chapter, so maybe Avery or whatever has changed their color to purple because everything has to be purple there. And maybe Snowdrop can just use her like path confusing rules to say that Avery and she are purple, and the path would be like, okay, and just let them hang out. So I thought that was a pretty fun one. I'm not sure how she'd get like surgery for her bullets or whatever, but I like it.
Yeah, but she can't die from the wounds at least. Yeah, okay. So we're going to get to our sword moot in a little bit, although this episode has still gone on plenty long on just the one chapter. Before we do get to the sword moot, though, we're going to quickly do our discussion question. So last week, Jenny and I asked everyone, what is your story or the story someone has told you that has made you realize we all have our own benchmarks for normal? And well, we got an answer from Wildbow, which I want to start with, because I think he has shared this story in the past, but it's a fucking good one. It's he in high school, he was at this like sounds like a high school that's sort of like a while. I think the term last chance is used. It's like a high school for people who've been struggling with other high schools and stuff. Anyway, and this girl confessed she had feelings for him. So he started making conversation with her. And my favorite part is when she says, "Hi, I'm Crystal, and I'm at this school because of Crystal. Get it?" And Walbo's just like, "I didn't really get it, but I figured it was probably new agey stuff. So I just smiled and nodded," which is a very big mood. And then, yeah, apparently him going on with that encouraged her because then she started really opening up to him, revealing she just got out of juvie, bunch of stuff. And it just sort of kept escalating because Walbo kept not running away to the point where she mentions how she got arrested for kicking her pregnant bitch sister in the stomach. And yeah, Walbo says he was just sitting there shell-shocked, wanting to go away. Sorry, yes, Walbo wants us to clarify. Those were her words. Crazy, bitch, pregnant bitch sister is her words. Anyway, so yeah, sounds like a lot.
Fancy Swamp had a funny one that they were at the zoo with their partner and hanging out. There's some hummingbirds, and some guy with his small child walks up, and the little kid is like, "Hey, Dad, what are those?" And the dad's like, "I don't know, some weird little birds." And then he picks up his child, and they leave. And it's just like wild. Like, I guess if you don't know what hummingbirds are, like, why not read the info card? But also,
why are you at the zoo?
Right? Why are you at the zoo if you don't care? Like, fascinating. Weird little birds. They do kind of remind me of bugs. They're the buggiest birds.
I remember. Yeah, I think I saw one in California. It's cool.
We live in a hummingbird migration path. So Ben had set up 2 feeders in our backyard, like more during hummingbird season. And if I looked outside, there was a hummingbird. Like if it was daylight, it was insane. Like we saw like 7 of them in the yard once, kind of doing little like aerial dive bombs to try to get each other away from the huge bird feeders that they definitely could have shared.
That's crazy.
It's awesome.
I went to the zoo once, so this is like a story to kind of build off Fancy Swamps. It's not as funny, but I have this distinct memory of being at the Dubbo Zoo, which is one of the big Australian zoos, when I was like 10. And there was this American family behind us, and we're looking at the koalas, and this like 5-year-old girl says to her dad, "Oh, did you know koala bears aren't actually bears?" And this dad just goes to her, "Then why do they call them koala bears? That's wrong. They're obviously bears." And then they just sort of left. And I just remember sitting there going, "But they're not bears." Like, this dad, like this little girl's sharing this fun fact with her dad. He just completely shut her down and insisted on them being bears. And then they just left. And I was like, I hope one day she got to tell him that they weren't bears again when the internet was invented.
Definitely.
But it was so weird to me to come all the way to Australia, go to like one of our zoos in the middle of nowhere and come stare at the koalas and then, just spout misinformation about them and leave. Like it was a similar vibe. It was like, what are you doing here if you're not here to learn about the animals that you're looking at?
Yeah.
We also got Beard of Valor, who came at this from a really interesting angle where they were sort of talking about how like everything exists on a scale of 1 to 10 essentially, and people's different ideas of normal can come from whether you've experienced a 10 on that scale or not. So they described they have like one sister who's just apparently like a maniac for pain. Like she'd be like, "Oh, this is like a 9 out of 10 pain," but like a 7 out of 10 of pain, she's like throwing up from the pain. Whereas like if I'm even getting close to throwing up from pain, that's past a 10 out of 10 for me. And then like they had another sister who had a coworker who was angry at their kid for getting in trouble at school, and so this sister brought up like all the stuff their brother had done, like get arrested or get a girl pregnant or something, and basically asking all those crazy scenarios about what the kid had done calmed the person down because they realized what their kid had done wasn't that bad actually. Which I like. And then there was another story about like when a friend was driving a 4-wheel drive and slid on some ice and they were panicking, but everyone else in the car had grown up in icy regions and they were like, "Oh, this is fine."
Yeah, this is just how it is. Sangachi has a couple of stories about how people having a different idea of what quantum physics is than they do.
I love this.
Sangachi actually studies quantum physics. Quantum means small, for those of you who haven't listened to Pale in Comparison, which I had to Google, and that's what I understand. It means small. Okay. So they met a woman on a bus. Oh, quantum means discrete, not small. That doesn't help. Okay. They met a woman on a bus with a chemical engineering degree, and she said, like, "I'm interested in quantum physics and quantum stuff." And Sangachi is excited that they get to talk to someone about like the stuff that they study and really love. But then this woman asks about quantum leaping and decides to like,
I'm sorry, this is so funny.
Decides to really insist that Sangachi spend their time studying how quantum mechanics lets us see the future in our dreams. And this is how Sangachi learned that interested in quantum mechanics is very different from person to person. And this has happened 3 times to them. Once they were on an airplane and there was a lady who was convinced she could control people's electron spins in her mind, and she could use this to cure cancer, which like do it. That's awesome. Like fucking let's go. And another with a researcher who really should have known better, but was convinced that friendship was quantum entanglements between people's brains. Wild. Apparently, this woman who cures cancer with her mind had a whole business about it. Which, how is that? Okay. Wild.
Oh, if people paid her to cure their cancer with electron spin mind powers. I mean, to be fair, as somebody who grew up watching a lot of sci-fi, electron spin mind powers sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen when nothing happened. I mean, maybe some of them did get better because they probably hopefully went to chemo or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with all these kind of snake oil scams, right? Is it's like, how do you deal with the fact that it doesn't work, though? But yeah, so I guess now it's time for our new discussion question.
Woo.
What is something that would make a terrible implement or domain or familiar that you would still do the ritual with because you love it that much? So yeah, you know, what's your equivalent of the motorbike that you would take as your implement, even though it's a shit implement, but you just it really feels like
it really
your
speaks
implement.
to you, yeah.
I mean, do you have an answer to this, Malia?
I'm trying to think of, yeah, like, I don't know. My favorite possession is probably my engagement ring, which is extra, and maybe not the worst because I carry it around all the time.
Yeah, I think a ring could be a really good one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could see a domain that was like I could see if I took a domain now where I'm living, that could be a really bad idea because like we don't know where we're going to end up long term. And so tying myself down in that way is a bad idea, but we do like living here a lot. That's kind of a lame answer. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, I've been trying to think. I had a similar thought with the domain. Like, so I'm going up to like the house that I grew up in 2 weeks to help my parents move out of it and move down to the same city that I live in, which I have mixed feelings about that side of it. But
wow.
Well, because they're already talking about weekly family dinners, which that's too many. That's too many family dinners. But yeah, like moving out of that house, I could see part of me being like, well, I could just claim this thing as a domain, and then I never have to say goodbye to it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a terrible reason to do that in a terrible place that I just moved out of myself because I was miserable there. So
yeah,
yeah.
I think that an answer for me for familiar would be Monty. Because I do think that like doing the familiar bond with a horror does not fit my way of being and my aesthetic, but I love him and I want him to be happy. So Monty.
That's a good answer. Yeah. But yeah, so leave your answers to those just the one discussion question in the discussion thread, which is in the show notes below. But before we go, let's do this sword moot.
Woo!
This is going to be a long episode again. Okay, so the way the sword moot is going to work, I've got a list of rules here. Basically, anyone can pitch a statement, and that statement will become Pale Reflections law, and that's spelled LAW or LORE, depending on how you feel. If there is no opposition to this statement, then it is enshrined as official law. If there is opposition, the first person to oppose it can declare their counter statement, and then there is a duel, and we'll go through the rules of the duels in a second. But essentially, the winner of that duel, their statement is enshrined as law, and if it is a tie, we'll get into how to handle the ties in a second. Is there anything else we need to cover, Malia?
Not that I can think of, but if it becomes immediately apparent that we forgot to mention something, hopefully we will. Once we try out this first one.
So I'll kick us off with the first one, just so we all get a feel. So what does it mean to enter law or war? There will be an official list, and this is official Pale Reflections canon.
Mm-hmm.
So that matters a lot for some reason. So I'm going to kick us off with the first motion, and this is an homage to the sword moot that Lucy participated in herself, which is the duels will take the form of a game of rock, paper, scissors, which can result in ties. So the first motion that I'm putting forward for this sword moot is that in the event of a tie, the hosts get to decide who the winner is. So it is now up to anyone else to suggest their own alternative to how ties should be handled.
Yeah, I think because like we have the microphones, that feels fair.
Yeah, exactly. I'm embracing the role of the Grayson and the Musser. We're Grayson and Musser here. The host, that's me and Malia, like hosts of the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go. I think the first full one that I understand is from Arctic Art, who is pulling a Lucy and suggesting that in the event of a tie, we settle it via Discord emoji from the people. So I think that's fair. So the way this works, I will now play rock, paper, scissors against Arctic Art. And I guess for this one, we'll just keep going until there isn't a tie. But then after this will decide how ties are handled from here on out. So let me just challenge Arctic Art to a game of rock, paper, scissors.
And if it doesn't work the first time, just click it again. Because for me, it didn't.
Damn it. Okay, Arctic Art has beaten me in a duel. I'm seeing a lot of huzzas in the chat. So in the event, let me copy their exact wording. Okay, perfect. So now we've got that rule set up. So I guess people can just start bringing motions. I mean, Malia, do you have one that you wanted to bring?
I have one that might be. I don't know if we can really talk about it on this podcast, so you can tell me no. But that pact is better than Pale, which saying it out loud makes me kind of giggle. But pact, as the original Otherverse story, is superior.
Oh, wow, okay? We're going for very hardcore, controversial stuff right from the get-go. I love it.
That's the first one I thought of.
I mean, does anybody oppose this?
Okay, I'm easily impressed.
Yeah, there we go. I'm easily impressed. Well, Malia, do you want to play against I'm easily impressed then?
Yes, let's do it.
We can't set up duels between two other people, so one of the people involved has to actually be part of it.
Oh, this is stressful.
Oh, I'm easily impressed has won the duel.
All right, don't pick rock, y'all.
Us hosts are doing poorly.
Apparently,
so far the will of the people is winning
Pale is better
a
than
lot.
Pact.
I don't like it. Okay, Pale is officially better than Pact. So the way this will work in the future is you can gainsay any host of Pale Reflections who explicitly says something that is different to one of these rules. And we don't want to be gainsaid heading into All Packed Up 2, I'll tell you that.
This is great.
Okay, good. I'm seeing a lot of emotions here. So I'll go for the first one I'm seeing. Belegtal has the motion that I'm easily impressed and Megafire are the true hosts of the podcast since their coup several months ago. Was that I'm easily impressed and Megafire? I think it was lapsed. Yes, I'm seeing I'm easily impressed say the same thing. But we can amend that. I'm interested to explore that. So I guess the statement would be I'm easily impressed and Lapsed Classicist are the true hosts of Pale Reflections. Are there any oppositions? Does anyone oppose? Going once. Going twice. Oh, we have one. You need to oppose it with an opposing statement, though.
I think if it wins, it might mean that people can gainsay you since you're officially a host.
Yeah. I mean, this lets me and Reuben off the hook. We can say whatever the fuck we want. It doesn't count because we're not the actual hosts. Elliot and Jenben are the true podcasting hosts. Is the opposition I'm seeing. Okay. So to challenge someone, you type this, and then it will let you autofill in the person. So I'm Belegtal. Do you want to challenge? Oh, no, Sengachi's on it. Cool. I think it was actually Belegtal who you meant to challenge.
Elliot. I like that. Couldn't think of a fun name for Reuben.
Maliot is. Yeah, that one works. Yeah, you're and Reuben's names just
Reuben.
don't share any syllables. It's very hard. Belegtal has won. Fuck, so that means it's just me.
So I'm easily impressed.
Elliot and
Jenben
are the true podcast hosts.
No.
It's now official law.
It's I'm easily impressed and Lapsed Classicists are the true hosts.
Belegtal. Oh, Belegtal won. Oh. Shit, yeah, no, wow. Yeah, I'm terrible at this. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the one lost the match is complicated.
Well, yeah, fucking immediate loophole for me to exploit. I love this.
Do you have another
what
one?
was the next one?
Or, right, there were some in the chat.
Motion. Elliot and Reuben and Jenny and Malia are the same people. Do we have any oppositions to this statement?
Wait, does this mean that I am the same person as Jenny, or that I am the same person as Elliot or Reuben?
All four of us are one person.
You're also...
Okay, objections going once, going twice.
There's the 4 again. Yep.
Belectal, I don't think that's quite an opposition though, because I can't enter the statement we have different Discord accounts into the law. I don't think. So I think that's going in unchallenged.
What about they are different people? They're 8 different people.
Sorry, Belectal, that was just too late. But I love the spirit. I'm sorry, I'm having to scroll up a lot of chat.
Right, I can try to keep track of that.
Yeah, we should probably start jotting them in the doc. Okay, Arctic Art has suggested we acknowledge all the Kennet girls as S-tier practitioners, and I'm just immediately going to challenge that with the statement that actually the rule, like the practitioner tier list is canon. So I'm going to challenge Arctic Art on that. I really want to win this one. I'm going to be very mad if I win it. God damn it! I'm so bad at rock paper scissors.
Apparently they're all S tier.
Okay. Well then, we acknowledge that all the Kennet gills are S tier practitioners. That's what was written. It doesn't say girls, so it's fine.
DDev has said, well, I'm not sure if this is definitely a statement. They said, I propose we accept it as canon that Avery is dead.
Yeah, I will say, like, as with the seal in the real story, actual canon does override Pale Reflections canon. So we can make that canon until it is disproven in the story. But that one probably won't last. But we can do it. We can do it still if you want. I would like to just bring one of my own before we keep doing user ones because I prepared some. So I'm just going to start with an easy one. Don't expect much opposition to this, but Biscuit is best goblin. The space for opposing statements is coming.
I'm easily impressed as Ram Jam is
I'm
best
easily
goblin.
impressed got in there with Ram Jam.
And so does everyone else because they're right.
Come on, okay, I gotta. This is the one. If I win one, just let it be this one. God damn it! How am I so bad at this?
Ram Jam best goblin. Let's go.
Oh God, this was a terrible idea because I'm just losing all of the God sucks.
That's pretty funny.
Man, I'm not going to be allowed to say anything anymore. Yeah, yeah, I've really been Charlesed here. That's a great point. Okay, sorry, Malia, did you have some others?
I saw one that is a proposal to the a segment of the podcast. Except now I sort of lost it. Or did you mean me personally?
Either or.
Well, Reuben has 2 listed, so
sorry, yes, Reuben did send some in.
As his replacement, I'll suggest that Liberty is the 4th Kenneteer, period. That's the thing. So it's not Snowdrop.
There have been
it's not
Jude.
About 10 it's not whoever. Okay, is the Lime Boy's statement sufficient? Or
yeah, I think the Lime Boy got in there with that one. So the Lime Boy is presumably saying Snowdrop is the 4th Kenneteer.
Okay, so in Reuben's stead, I will play the Lime Boy. Oops. Just use this account. What the heck? Why are we so bad at rock, paper, scissors? Okay, Snowdrop is the 4th Kenneteer forever, Eggman.
Man, we are not doing good, Malia.
I don't know. Every time, so this is actually pretty funny. So Elliot and I were testing this out, and we kept tying every time we tested it. So apparently we're both equally bad at rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, we've both gone from tying with each other to losing to everyone else. We're both just
really bad.
supernaturally bad at this. Okay.
Oh, I'm easily impressed.
I'm gonna chuck one of mine out there as well.
Okay.
God, I hope I can get one of these through. I'm gonna pitch once again that Jasmine and Anthem are OTP. So is there any objection to this? I think Jay brought up the only candidate that matters for this in the reflecting episode. Wait, okay, hold on. But Montague is two different people. Like, does OTP doesn't that just mean for each other? Have I?
That is how I understood it, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it means best pairing.
Interesting.
Because I guess I wouldn't see Montague having anything to do with this. So I just want to make sure. Have I been using this term wrong? Yeah, best for those characters is what I mean. Generally, you name a single ship per piece of media as OTP. Okay, well, no, I'm not pushing Miss and Anthem. Oh, am I? Maybe. Well, we'll go with Miss and Jasmine. I'll fight Sengachi for. Wait, you're saying Miss and Jasmine, not
not Miss and Anthem.
Okay. We thought it was going to be Miss and Anthem, but I guess we're doing this. Arctic Art, the answer to your comment that Miss does not like Anthem is yet.
Enemies to lovers is a great trope.
Oh, I got the interaction failed thing. Yes. God, I'm good at this.
Congratulations, Elliot. So, Jasmine and Anthem are OTP.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm easily impressed. Suggest that Elliot loves cats and must mention this at least once an episode.
Is there any opposition from anyone?
Do you not oppose this?
Well, I keep losing. I do oppose it, but I want somebody else to fight my battles for me. God, okay, well, fine. Yeah, I'll challenge it. And my statement is going to be, Elliot does not love cats and gets to complain about them whenever he wants. So, have at you. I'm easily impressed. Oh my God, I'm on a roll. What did I even say? Elliot does not like cats and can complain about them whenever he wants. Hell yeah. Which, speaking of, I gotta say, so I had to end a meeting early on Friday afternoon because Lexi, being the goblin that she is, decided that it was dinner time an hour and a half early and started jumping on my head and licking my face during this meeting. And I literally could not get her off me. When I threw her away, she just came back. So we had to end the meeting 10 minutes early so I could feed her early.
Cats are great. Sengachi proposes that the podcasters have to join in when the chat declares huzzah. That we must also huzzah.
I like that one.
I do like that one.
I'm not going to oppose it. Any opposers? Going once?
Yeah.
Going twice? Sold. Okay, yeah.
Huzzah.
I was worried somebody might jump in there with something stupider we had to say or something. Like if everyone else says huzzah, we have to say, I don't know. There's got to be some other funny rule of discourse you could throw at us.
Elliot, you have to say it.
Oh, huzzah. God, I'm going to be bad at this, huh? Cool. I had one more I wanted to do, which is, and I wrote this one for Reuben before he had the bandwidth to submit his own. But in his spirit, I will submit that Aunt Heather was a secret practitioner, or is a secret practitioner.
I agree. And will this be posted to a public Google Doc,
yes.
Elliot? Yes. Okay.
It won't be in a public Google Doc, but it will be publicly available somehow. I'll probably tweet it at the very least, and Twitter will be around forever, I think.
All right. I'm easily impressed. Disagrees and says that Aunt Heather is a secret aunt, A-N-T.
Yeah. So is that a misspelling? I'm easily impressed.
It doesn't matter. That's what. That's what it is.
No. Okay.
So are you going to act as Reuben's?
Yes.
Sweet.
I will challenge them now. God damn it. Okay. Aunt Heather is a secret aunt. Cool.
Huzzah.
Yeah, huzzah. Malia / chat. Any other bits of Pale Reflections lore? Huzzah.
Huzzah. I don't have any.
This is gonna make no sense to people listening after because they can't see the chat. So it's just gonna be me and whoever's hosting. It's just gonna be us just randomly saying huzzah in the middle of episodes.
Actually, wait. We don't have. Wait. Oh wait. Was the phrasing the podcasters have to? Not the hosts.
Yes, podcasters.
Oh, that was tricky because we're not the hosts.
Okay, Arctic Art is proposing that whenever Solomon is mentioned, his name must be followed by who was forsworn. We've got to do Miss Proud. Any opposition to this rule of discourse around Solomon?
I think that whenever anyone says Solomon, they should say Solomon who was forsworn in the end.
Okay. So that's a lose-lose. Well, do you want to challenge Arctic Art?
Yep.
I guess you two are fighting on this question mark.
Dang it!
How do we keep losing?
I don't know. Hey, you actually have some victories. So Solomon who was forsworn.
Yeah, I did get a few in there, but I think we're like 3 for 12 at this point. Done terribly. Huzzah. Now, my tallest. Unfortunately, your proposal can't be accepted because there is no 25-hour live stream.
It's as long as it will go. It's as long as it has to be.
Yes. Yeah, it's a forever live stream. But yes, no, there is no 25-hour live stream. So, unfortunately, we cannot accept that proposal. So, last call for proposals. Trying to think if I had any other ones like it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Reuben did submit. Lucy is best Kenneteer. We'll make this the final one. Fuck you, Aziza did it. Got in there first opposed with Avery. So now it's
See, I was gonna say they're all best, but
it's now either Lucy or Avery. I mean, she's not even alive and she's gonna win. It's bullshit.
She might not. Oh.
Okay. No.
Avery's best.
It's decided Avery is now
best Kenneteer.
Officially the best Kenneteer. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Poor Verona didn't even. Oh, I mean, she's the only A tier. Oh no, I can't even say that anymore. God damn it. Oh, this sucks. Okay, well, just a quick recap, and we will be posting this on Twitter and probably some other places. But there are now 13 pieces of official Pale Reflections lore. In the event of a tie, it is settled via Discord emoji by the people. Number 2, Pale is better than Pact. Number 3, I'm easily impressed and Lapsed Classicist are the true hosts of the podcast since their coup several months ago. Number 4, Elliot and Reuben and Jenny and Malia are the same people. Number 5, we acknowledge that all the Kennet girls are S-tier practitioners. Number 6, Ram Jam is best goblin. Got to admit, that one hurts the most. Number 7, Snowdrop is the 4th Kenneteer. Number 8, Jasmine and Anthem are OTP. Number 9, Elliot does not like cats and can complain about them whenever he wants. 10, podcasters have to join in when the chat declares huzzah. Number 11, Aunt Heather is a secret aunt. Number 12, whenever Solomon is mentioned, his name must be followed by who was forsworn. And 13, Avery is the best Kenneteer.
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
I feel like this feels, we're happy about some things, we're sad about other things. No one's completely satisfied. This feels in the spirit of the Sword Moot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how many years until we re-examine this lore list?
So we will do another Sword Moot during All Packed Up 2.
Woohoo!
So don't know when that will be. But when it is, yeah, we'll do another one. We might even try and get you back for that part, Malia.
That'd be fun.
We'll see how the schedule falls.
Yeah, so about 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. just like in the story. Cool. So you can comment on the Pale Reflections lore or answer the discussion question in our Reddit thread, which is in the show notes down below.
And you should review us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever you find your podcasts, because it helps people find us, but maybe more importantly, find Wildbow and Pale.
Exactly. If this podcast became a way to spread Pale, then it's a win. We're also on Twitter. That's where you will find the Pale Reflections lore list. It's where you'll find memes that are sometimes controversial, but I stand by them. So yeah, check it out.
You can also check out the rest of the Doof Media podcasting network on doofmedia.com. You'll find fun updates from all of our shows. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a specific thing happening.
There's bonus shows. Sorry. Yeah, there's bonus shows on the Doof Media Patreon as well, patreon.com/Doof Media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now like 2 weeks behind, unfortunately, but I have been really enjoying the World Cup dates that Malia and her fiance Ben have been bringing to us. Helping get a fun, different perspective on how the World Cup is going.
It's basically every episode at some point devolves into like, is that a rule in soccer? I don't know if that's a rule in soccer. And we wait for Captain Rhino to tell us whether or not that's actually a rule in soccer after we post the episode. But there's one episode left. So come find out what happened in the World Cup if you aren't following it.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the segment a couple of weeks ago where you tried to predict who would win based on getting the animal symbols of each country to see how they would go in a soccer match.
Yeah.
I thought that was very fun.
Yeah, they had to follow the soccer rules, so it wasn't just like, well, they'd eat them. Like, no, that's a foul. That's a penalty.
The extended argument about whether quadrupeds could use their front two paws was very funny.
I still... whatever, it's fine.
So yeah, last thing, Wildbow's Patreon, patreon.com/Wildbow. Once again, it's possible that maybe he's holding on to Avery's death until donations double. So just in the 1 in a billion chance that that's what he's doing, you better go to Patreon and subscribe to him.
Yeah, or if you celebrate any sort of winter holiday that's coming up around now, give Wildbow a nice Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever gift.
That's
hopefully
a much better one.
He, he's burning the midnight oil, writing away during these festive times, and yeah, he'd like a present probably.
Yeah, share the holiday cheer. And so Pale Reflections with me, Reuben, Jenny, and Malia, because we're all the same person. We'll be back next week on Christmas Day, our time, to talk about whatever chapters come out next.
Wow, that's commitment, y'all.
So we'll see you then.
Thanks. Huzzah!
Huzzah.